evening. I'm Norman Robinson, and welcome to Affordable Housing Matters. On tonight's show, we'll discuss the important role the New Orleans Regional Transit Authority has for those individuals living in the city of New Orleans. And later on tonight's show, we will learn how one can qualify for a home loan on a low to moderate household income. Fidelity Bank will be here to share the details of their new home loan programs. Great show planned for you this evening. We'll have more Affordable Housing Matters right after this break.
Weeknights at midnight on LAE.
You know, the New Orleans Regional Transit Authority gets people moving around New Orleans. Their services bring hard-working commuters to their jobs, students to their schools, and travelers to entertainment, shopping, and restaurant venues around the city. With me now to tell us more about the RTA and its connectivity to affordable housing is their Vice President and General Manager, Mr. Justin Augustine III. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you very much, Norman.
It's good to have you here tonight.
Same here.
You know, as we were talking before we got started with this broadcast, I wouldn't have put the Regional Transit Authority and affordable housing together.
And as I mentioned,
that comes to me as a surprise.
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, most people wouldn't. But it's all about connectivity and access. Clearly, those that have housing space or have a need of housing space still have to be connected to economic centers and places of employment and places of entertainment or wherever they may choose to be. Public transportation represents that connecting factor.
I know you guys have been working on a strategy. It's called Strategic Mobility.
That's correct.
Strategic
Mobility Plan.
Now, what does that mean, and how does it factor into this whole discussion about affordable housing?
Well, first, let me explain what our Strategic Mobility Plan. It's a long-term strategy to determine what and how public transportation will function in the city of New Orleans and the parishes that we serve over the next 5, 10, 20 years into the future. Now, one would say, well, how would you guess 20 years out?
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. We spent one whole year doing public outreach and public engagement, and we work with every walk of life in this community to get their feelings, to understand their needs, to understand the commitments that they really wanted public transportation to fulfill for them. And after a year of discussion throughout the entire community, a footprint was put together in terms of here's some of the strategic things they really want transit to fulfill for them. So it gives us literally a guidepost to follow on a short term over the next 5 years, medium term over 10 years, and then a longer term strategy over the next 20 years.
So in determining how this affects affordable housing and the proponents of affordable housing and the agencies that are involved in developing affordable housing, what kind of conversations have you had with them?
Well, I'll tell you, those conversations were very passionate.
I can imagine.
Passionate. And passionate to the positive, I should say. It's important that we in the community understand the real need that individuals within our community have. And those that live in affordable housing sometimes are the low wage earners on the economic scale throughout the community. And now they're forced to find affordable housing that sometimes puts them further and further away from their job center. And so the question then becomes, you're asking me to travel a longer distance, a longer travel time to get to my same place of employment, and sometimes it costs me more. If you think about travel distance, and there's work schedules that we all have to adhere to, sometimes those that live in affordable housing, they don't have the option of an automobile, or they don't have the option to afford Uber or Lyft, or they can't afford the option of taking a taxi cab. It becomes very expensive for them. So public transportation is critically important for them because public transportation is affordable. And so if you can have an affordable transportation service to get you to your job center, those two things work hand in hand. Now, I will also say this. It's important that we understand the shifting and changing demographic and population around the community in which we all live.
Oh, that's key.
That's very key. Because as we provide and plan services, the normal progression in human existence is that we all travel and we move constantly. Okay? So as new population centers develop, new housing centers develop, it's important for us to be able to connect efficient public transportation to those respective locations and still get them very effectively and very efficiently to their workspace.
Now, I was seeing pictures as you were talking. I saw streetcars, I saw the buses, I saw the ferries. How would ferries play into this affordable housing
Well,
equation?
ferries is just another mode of public transportation. Today, under the RTA's operational services, we have 4 modes, we call them. Fixed route, our bus service, streetcar services, ferry services, which is basically on the river, and it commutes you from one side of the river to the next side of the river, and also our paratransit services that helps to provide transit services for those under the ADA rules and regulations. So ferries play an important mode of transportation in our community. As a matter of fact, the ferry services that run between New Orleans and Algiers, St. Bernard and Algiers, carry approximately 1.1 million passengers a year.
That many?
That many people. And I would love to say we would love to triple that number.
Wow. I had no idea.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about working class people.
Working class people that may live on the West Bank, work on the East Bank, that may live on the East Bank and work on the West Bank. Absolutely.
Now, when you talk to affordable housing agencies about maintaining the number of affordable housing, or the percentage of affordable housing for working class people close to where they work, how much of a challenge is that? Because we're looking at development taking place in New Orleans that some people define it as gentrification, where more upscale and high salary people are moving into these areas and displacing working class people. What does that mean for the
and that
Regional
is a
Transit
challenge.
Authority?
And I'll give you an example. You know, if you have someone who once lived within a 5-minute walk of their destination in an affordable home, and then gentrification takes place or a new development is deemed necessary and they're displaced out of their existing location, then they're forced to move out 30 minutes away or 40 minutes away from their work center, which means now, maybe for the first time, they can no longer walk to work. So they have to find another means of getting there. So for public transportation, it's understanding where those new shifting patterns are occurring throughout the city, trying to stay close to the housing authority agencies to understand where the demographics are moving, try to understand from developers, what's a new development being planned, where at in the city, so we can plan and adjust our service schedules to basically connect to those locations and create a route structure to get them back to where they need to be on a day-to-day basis.
So you guys are like urban planners.
Absolutely. Public transportation.
How many hats are you wearing?
You know what, Norman, I tell you, it's funny. I think when people think about public transportation, oh, it's just a bus.
Yeah.
No, it's really not a bus. There's a significant amount of urban planning, land use development understanding, and economic development that we play a significant role in.
Talk about the economic development aspect of it.
If you think about public transportation from an economic development standpoint, if you think about the last 2 corridors that we've developed from the rail development standpoint, what happened on Loyola Avenue, and what's beginning to happen on the revitalization or the rejuvenation of Rampart Street.
Yeah.
Those streetcar lines have brought new development opportunities. Those streetcar lines have brought more housing opportunities. And we had a report developed that on Loyola, within a quarter of a mile of the streetcar line, $2.7 billion of ancillary development have incurred due to institution of the streetcar line.
Now, did you envision that as you were making these plans?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact, what most people probably don't realize, we don't plan public transportation in a vacuum. I mean, clearly we think about what is the city's policy of land use? You know, what type of development potentially could go in those respective parcels of land? What neighborhoods will be redeveloped? And the types of individuals that would be moving to those locations. So we try to sit and work very, very closely with all of these respective agencies to ensure that when those areas develop or are planned to be developed, we understand the need for public transportation up front, and we can plan for it accordingly. The challenge sometimes, if development is developed without concert of transit, sometimes there's not a transit connect. And then we're rushing behind the 8 ball to try to reconnect what should have been connected to the planning
So
process.
how do you determine, or better yet, how do you get all these people to the table at the same time?
Well, have an open business model that everybody is invited to the table. And you have to believe in public communication and transparency. And to make sure you want good public engagement. And public engagement for me is just not the general public, it's the private sector, it's the developers, it's anybody in our community that has a project that would need input. And most projects all need input. So it's important that you sit around the table and you discuss this respective type of project, and all elements that are needed come to the table and we can work in concert.
So the streetcar development we're seeing take place around the city didn't materialize with some guy sitting in an office saying, hey, this would be a great thing for tourists.
Right. Well, you know, Norman, that's a great statement that you made. We never, ever have sat down in any office to say, how do we develop something for tourists? That is not one of the driving factors in which we in the transit world come to the table and try to develop a route that's specifically designed for the community in which we serve. Now, clearly, tourists are welcome on our system. We don't turn our backs on them. But I think what people have to understand, 84% of all our streetcar riders are locals.
Now that I didn't appreciate.
Only 16% of the ridership on streetcars are tourists. 84% of those riders all live and work in the city of New Orleans and neighborhoods like you and I live in. And because our transportation service is so integrated that all bus lines connect to all streetcar lines with the exception of one, and that's on the riverfront. But you can transfer from a bus to a streetcar to a ferry boat very seamlessly.
Which area of your service creates or presents the most challenging demographic?
I think the most challenging part of the demographic area that we have is those individuals that live in different parishes, like in Jefferson Parish. Because unfortunately today we don't have a truly regional system, although the name of the authority is the Regional Transit Authority, we are not regionally connected. You know, we operate the city of New Orleans and we operate the city of Kenner. But you have, in Jefferson Parish, you have Metairie sitting right in between of all of that. So if you live in Harvey, hypothetically, and there's no transit services serving that area, it makes it very difficult for the individual to have to transfer multiple transit lines to get into their workspace what may be downtown.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't get there from here.
Absolutely.
You
It's
know,
very
in
difficult.
Harvey, you can see the skyline of the city.
Right. But you can't take public transportation to get in. And that's unfortunate. And I'm sure as we continue to plan and work toward the future, that is something the community has asked us to consider. How do we make this a truly regional system?
So, last question. You're optimistic or pessimistic about the future of affordable housing?
I'm very optimistic about the future of affordable housing. Why? If we don't develop affordable housing for our citizens, we won't have a community. And if we don't have a community, we don't have a city. Because the city is just based upon a cluster of all these different communities, or we say neighborhoods. And within those neighborhoods, those are our workers. And if we don't have workers coming to the employment centers, we can't produce the products that are so vital and valuable to the city of New Orleans. Look, every employer who's looking for a place to relocate wants to have a strong workforce. That workforce has to have affordable housing to live because there's a wage gap in our community. And so the more expensive a community is, the harder it is to have affordable housing. So when you speak about affordable housing, you also have to tie in reducing the wage gap to ensure that our workers have the opportunity to earn competitive wages, live in decent housing that's affordable to live within our community. You know, I lived in San Diego for 7 years, and I'll never forget a headline that came out. San Diego, America's favorite city, but no one can afford to live here.
We don't want that.
We
here,
don't want
right?
that. We don't want to say New Orleans is the #1 destination in the world, but nobody can afford to live there. That is not a headline we would be proud of. So it's important we have to work collectively within our community to ensure that every element within our community has the ability to live a quality life.
Justin Augustine, Vice President and General Manager of the Regional Transit Authority of New Orleans and the outlying areas. It's been an enjoyable conversation and an educational one.
Same here.
All right.
Same here.
Thank you
so very much. My pleasure.
All right.
Okay.
Are you going to get a look into getting a home, and are you worried about, well, I don't make enough money? Well, coming up next, Fidelity Bank will be here to tell us how you may qualify for a loan to get into your dream home. Don't go far.
Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I really want to know where my food's coming from. You'll find the difference in flavor is quite remarkable.
The leaves are a lot more tender than the stalks and stems.
Absolutely. It's one of the easiest lamb recipes you'll ever try. It's avocado salsa turkey bacon burger. Make something delicious that you can share with friends and you can enjoy the flavor throughout the entire year.
Saturdays at 5 p.m. on WLAE.
The NOLA Lending Group, a division of Fidelity Bank, has the experience and expertise to guide one through the home buying process quickly and effectively. Here to tell us how they make this happen, Ms. Danielle Smith, Assistant Operation Manager for the NOLA Lending Group. Thank you for being here, Ms. Smith.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you know what? It's always a pleasure to talk about gaining access to affordable housing, because a lot of people, especially people in our culture,
Yes.
figure, housing is just something that's beyond our reach. And you're here to tell us that that's not so.
It's not so. I mean, a lot of people do believe that they feel like they can't qualify for a mortgage because they don't have the money saved, or their credit isn't excellent, like the 700 plus credit scores.
Yeah.
And usually those are perceptions, and that's, at this point now, it's a myth.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of programs out there, not just the traditional, conventional, not just the traditional government loan programs that are available now that help borrowers in that low to moderate income range find their dream home, be able to purchase their dream home, and even set themselves up to build that wealth, to pass that on to that next generation.
Well, culturally, we've been stuck in this little box where we think that we can either rent a house, which is a lot more convenient for us
Yes.
because of salary, or we can buy some low-income property in some destitute neighborhood, for instance.
And that is so not the case anymore. You're able, like with these programs now, especially with the ones that Fannie Mae has come out with and Freddie Mac has come out with, that are not your traditional conventional mortgages, like they allow borrowers that have within a certain income limit to be able to buy in any neighborhood. As long as they meet that income limit, they can buy in pretty much any neighborhood in New Orleans or Jefferson or wherever they're looking.
Now, you have two programs at Fidelity.
Yes.
You talked about two specific types of loans
Yes.
at Fidelity that you're offering.
That we do offer. It's the Fannie Mae Home Ready product, and then there's the Home Possible product through Freddie Mac. These allow borrowers to actually put down as low as 3%.
Really? As low as 3%?
As low as 3% when you're buying a one-unit property. So it's definitely geared towards single-family homes. However, you can buy a 2 to 4 unit if you'd like. Those particular programs are designed by Fannie and Freddie to target or to pretty much cater to low to moderate income families, to provide alternative options. Typically, back in the day, conventional mortgages used to be you had to have 700 plus credit scores, you had to have 20% down. That's not the way it is anymore. Traditionally we were told that we can only qualify for FHA.
Wow.
And that's
So this opens up a vast area for people to explore.
Absolutely. It gives you the opportunity to customize or even find a mortgage that suits your particular situation, your particular budget, your specific housing need. A lot of times what we'll do, especially in our culture, we'll look at someone else who may have gotten denied for a loan or may have been told they can only qualify for this kind of loan, and we think that applies to us. And that's not always the case, which is why it is important that you do contact a lender very early on in the process so that they can walk you through whatever options are available to you for your specific situation.
So at Fidelity, who should they be contacting?
NOLA Lending Group.
NOLA Lending Group. Okay.
Yes.
Is
All of
that-
the loan officers with NOLA Lending Group are very knowledgeable and eager to help.
So the first step is to call and I guess ask questions and get filled in on
Yes.
the programs and the eligibility for.
Correct. Now, if you're looking in Orleans and Jefferson Parish for these particular programs, the Home Ready and the Home Possible, the income limit is $63,300. However, it all depends on where you buy the house. So if you buy a house in a particular neighborhood, there may not be an income limit. So it is really important that before you start looking or even while you're looking for a home, if you think you can possibly qualify for this kind of program, contact the lender. Tell them this is where I'm looking, this is the zip code that I'm looking in. If you have a particular property in mind, give them the property address and let them tell you what you can qualify for. It's always good to ask those questions. The worst answer you can get is no.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, I think there's a saying in the Christian Bible that you have not because you've
not.
asked not.
Correct.
Yeah. So that potential buyers should be aware of what they need to do is call a lender and have specific questions about what it is that they need to qualify for a particular loan.
Well, usually what you would do is you go through the pre-qualification process.
Okay.
So you would call a lender, give them your information. Sometimes you will have to have your credit report run, and they can tell you exactly what you can qualify for. And then if you tell them I'm looking in a specific neighborhood or a specific area, they'll tell you, okay, you can possibly get the Home Possible or the Home Ready, depending on which what house you choose.
So they have this information
Yes.
at their fingertips.
Correct.
So zip codes.
Yes. Yes, you can easily look up, if you go on a Fannie Mae website or Freddie Mac, the Freddie Mac website, you can type in the zip code, you can type in the parish, you can even type in the street address, and it'll tell you exactly what the income limit is for that particular property. And all of the lenders at NOLA Lending Group do have access to this information.
And when you're talking about income limit, you're talking about the maximum
63.
income you can have.
Correct. Or the maximum income that you need the maximum income used to qualify.
That's the maximum. Okay.
Yes.
Is there a minimum
No.
income?
Well, in order for you to be able to qualify for a mortgage,
Yeah,
of course.
because we had somebody on the show once, and the producer and I were talking about his statements after he left. Says, well, if you could be a dishwasher and qualify for it.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
absolutely correct.
So that's not a bogus outlandish statement.
No, that's not a bogus outlandish statement. As long as you have the income that can support the mortgage payment for the house you're trying to buy. These particular programs cater to the low to moderate income borrowers so that they're able to get those flexible type of mortgage insurance options that you and I were talking about earlier that can help them with their payment, get them in a payment that's comfortable. As long as you can afford that payment, it doesn't matter what you do.
So you mean I can negotiate my payment?
Correct.
Really?
Yes.
So I can go to a lender and I can say, well, this is what I can pay per month. Can you work with me?
Yes, and I mean, if it's one of those things that it fits within the guidelines of the program, of course. These particular programs allow you some flexible options in regards to mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance is something that you do have to pay sometimes for the life of the loan, depending on the product that you have. But with the Home Ready and the Home Possible, there are options where you can pay either a single premium up front as opposed to a monthly premium, so that can change your monthly payment. There are options to where your lender can pay the mortgage insurance for you. There are many different options.
So how does that work? Explain that to me. Where the lender pays the mortgage insurance for you? So you pay the lender on the back end, or what?
No. It's one of those things where it can be built into either your interest rate or some of the pricing in regards to the loan, where they can offer, where the lender can pay that mortgage insurance premium as opposed to you paying it.
Wow, this is exciting stuff. When you talk about the options that are available for people to take advantage of, I had no idea.
Yes.
Because I thought there was a structure and that the structure was rigid and that only certain people could qualify. So you're telling me that...
And that's the perception. And I think that's a lot of the perception, because that's how the mortgage industry used to be. A lot of the push nowadays is to promote home ownership opportunities for these low to moderate income families. They are working class families. These are the ones that need the housing, that need to be able to start building wealth. I mean, you and I had talked about that one of the quickest ways, or one of the most tried and true ways to start building wealth is through real estate. You know, and a lot of times our culture definitely gets caught up in the fact that we're not able to afford a mortgage today or afford a house today, as opposed to being able to say, okay, well, maybe I can try to help me build that wealth in the long term.
So you mean the viewer who's sitting here watching you discuss these options right now can pick up a telephone
Yes.
Tomorrow during business hours and say, you know, I'm
They
looking
can
for a
reach
house.
out to all loan officers with NOLA Lending Group. Definitely are available, and will answer questions, and will help you definitely do that pre-qualification process once you find that house, and get you all the way to closing.
Is there a particular number that they need to have at their disposal to call, or to just look you up on the internet?
You can look us up on the internet. Definitely go to either the Bank with Fidelity, bankwithfidelity.com, or you can go directly to NOLAlending.com. Find an office in your area, or call the main number, and you can get transferred to any loan officer.
Mm-hmm. And last question: why are you so passionate about this?
Because I believe that we, especially, you know, our community, people, you know, our culture, that we miss out on a lot of opportunities because we think we can't afford them, or that we've gotten caught up in the misbelief, or in the perceptions that, you know, this is the only kind of mortgage product available. You know, these are the only kind of options available to us, and that's not the case, especially not today. And I believe, you know, that being able to afford a home, putting your family in a home where you feel comfortable, where you feel safe, you know, that affects everything. You know, affordable housing in great neighborhoods affects mental health, you know, physical well-being. You know, there are so many different ways. You know, financial health, being able to pass on, you know, property to your children and your grandchildren. I think that is so important.
Thank you very much. You've given us all reasons to be optimistic about being of service to other people, and it's been a joy meeting you.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise.
I hope to have you back.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate
All right.
that.
It's Danielle Smith, Assistant Operations Manager for NOLA Lending Group, a division of Fidelity. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to again thank our guests for joining us this evening on Affordable Housing Matters. Remember, if you would like to rewatch this or any other episodes of Affordable Housing Matters, please go to WLAE.com and click on the programming link. There you can rewatch this and all past episodes of Affordable Housing Matters. I want to again thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm Norman Robinson. Have a good night.